الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا مولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله. In the name of Allah, the gracious, the merciful, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the universe, the master of the day of judgment. I bear witness and testimony to the oneness of Allah, to his magnificence, his omnipotence, his might, his glory, to his being the creator and sustainer of all things, the giver of life, the guider of hearts, the master of the day of judgment. And I bear witness to the fact that Muhammad ibn Abdullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam is the servant and final messenger. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him and upon all those who choose to tread in his path until the last day. If we were to categorize religion on a whole into different modes of understanding, one of the ways in which we could understand the implementation of religion could be at a transactional level versus a transformational level. Islam as a religion is not one that fits into either of these boxes so neatly, absolutely. Just as much as society seeks to place us into boxes that we quite often also blend in some capacity, but also differ with. We are not necessarily right or left. We are not necessarily liberal or conservative. We don't fit into boxes so neatly that the world seeks to put us into. And you don't want to think about this as purely transactional or transformational alone, but to be able to understand how sometimes we err more on the former than the latter. We miss out on the opportunity for inner cultivation that as we grow in our relationship with ourselves and in turn with our relationship with the divine, the sweetness that religion can offer is something that is there for us to take, but we haven't necessarily moved into the blend of transformational as it relates to transactional. When I think of something transactional, I perform in order to receive something. There is an action and then there is an ajr. There is a deed and then there is reward. There is a prohibition and then there is punishment. Obedience is understood in this frame of just do's and don'ts and rights and wrongs, and the outward and the external becomes not only the emphasis, but the only and the absolute. In the religion that you and I practice, may Allah make us those who are the strongest of believers. We are given a dimension that is definitely ritualistic in terms of practice and prayer and fasting and charity, pilgrimage. But that dimension is not only coupled, but informed with other dimensions that are beautiful theology, a robust spiritual tradition, and a universal set of ethics and values, all of which are meant to inform practice, and practice becomes a means to the amplification and enhancement of this. And that transformational part is something that can be yielded if there's an understanding that achievement in and of itself is not just through getting the thing done, but to allowing for it to then make malleable my inner self. And as we are less than a week away from yet another Ramadan, may Allah bless us to reach it and take benefit from it. At this point, I want to ask myself how it is that it's going to be something that transforms me, that allows for me to not leave from it in the same state in which I entered into it, and not just understand religion and sound bites as sources of entertainment, but to really think about how my practice is informed by belief, and my behavior then is an output of an input that is more conviction rooted rather than just practice I might have inherited that somebody else told me we're supposed to do this because we're Muslim. And elements that can make this thing transformational are meant to be easily accessible to all of us. Because a religion that claims to be universal and a final testament sent to humanity has to be something that enables access to the divine for all populations, regardless of their race, their culture, their class, their ethnicity. Whether they work 20 hours a day or don't work at all, whether they are from the most affluent of those who have affluence, or they're at the other end of the spectrum. The entire world is a masjid, the Prophet ﷺ says, then that means you can be Muslim anywhere, which means also Muslims come from everywhere. It can't be a system that is so rigid that it would create difficulty to access the divine. The transformational aspects of these things are not meant to be difficult to harness. I just have to think about it from that vantage point. It's a primary for me to think about how this coming Ramadan will be transformational for me. The most foundational elements of our tradition that we keep going back to individually. Nobody can do it for you. You have to do it yourself. From the highest point on that list of foundations is going to be niyyah, or intention. I don't bring myself to my fast just for physiological reasons. It's not so that I could lose some of the extra weight that's just been stuck to me since COVID. I can't be in a place where it's just about these types of intentions. At a baseline, why you fast as a Muslim is because Allah told you to. And if you have the physical capacity, the health, and the ability to do it, then you do it. And that intention is rooted in an obedience that might seem to be transactional at its face value, but in and of itself can be transformational because it creates now an identity variable that my traversing of the day ahead of me is rooted in a pre-dawn expressed intention that today I'm fasting for the sake of the divine. I'm not just getting up to have suhoor because my family used to do this when I was younger, or my friends stayed over tonight and we're going to get together communally. I'm not going to engage in an entire daylight experience that prevents myself from the consumption of food or drink or marital intimacy just because it's something that makes me feel good. We're not a people who worship feelings. We are people who worship the creator of feelings. That intention comes expressed individually, allowing for me to affirm for myself at a level that can be a key entry point to something that is transformational, that allows for me to change because I want to change. So, why do you fast? Why do you give in charity? Why do you stand into the late hours of the night? Why do you seek out Laylatul Qadr? Why do you make intention for etikaf? Why do you feed people to break their fasts? Everything goes back to this foundational element. A paradox of decision making is that when you don't make a choice, you've essentially chosen. And the rendering of an output that's exerted from unconscious intention doesn't mean that I still don't go through the motions of the day. But when I can harness what makes me innately human, distinct from the rest of creation, amongst those are two characteristics. One, I have the capacity to think critically. And two, Allah bless me as a human to express in ways that other animals in creation simply just can't express. You set a standard of accountability to yourself when you verbalize an intention every single morning of Ramadan, not just going through the mechanics in a way that allow for you to suffice the legal aspects of the religion. It's not hard to experience Ramadan if you have the physical ability. You don't even have to do anything, you just have to not do stuff. You could sit in your room all day and sleep and just not eat or drink, and you have fasted. You shouldn't do that, but it's something that you could do. Legal sufficiency does not denote moral adequacy. And the ability for me to simply think at that dimension that is transactional, that can create a sufficement from the legal aspects of the fast and its validity, doesn't come the same way when I begin with intention that says, today I am fasting the way a Muslim is supposed to fast. Today I am experiencing Ramadan the way a believer in Islam experiences a day in Ramadan. Creating responsibility, accountability, consciousness, awareness, allowing from the beginning of it all to be a transformational experience that starts from an expressed intention, that's a reflection of an inward state that the heart is saying, I want to be sovereign always. You have to do it for yourself. No one can do it for you. How can anybody else tell you what your niyyah is in anything that you do? The rote regurgitation of prophetic tradition that comes from the tongue but is not necessarily experienced inwardly doesn't mean that it doesn't have impact. But moving from a state of ghafla to a state of presence mean you got to start someplace. So bucket number one of letting this thing be transformational, intention every day. Creating a roadmap that at the end of the day that can say, did I fulfill the intention upon which I had started? And a foundation to the multiplicity of intentions that you can bring. I'm doing it because Allah told me to do it. A second bucket that would allow for this to be a transformational experience for those who have the ability to fast. May Allah make it easy for us. You start to see hunger as a pedagogy, as a teacher. Not just something that you experienced in terms of stomach pains and thirst and throats, but you start to understand what it is that hunger allows for you to primarily know about you. When do you start to get more irritated and frustrated? What happens when the nafs starts to weaken and it shows you just its nature in terms of its immaturity? The entirety of Ramadan is about allowing for yourself to break the form of the nafs that's called the nafs al-amara bisu. To not be in a place where you allow for it to command you to just the fulfillment of base desire. And to understand that the pedagogy that comes from the experience of hunger, that allows for me to understand my fragility, my dependency, to see truly the state that I'm in and how it is that it can be exhausting, the practice of self restraint. But pedagogically, hunger also teaches us a lot about power, because power quite often is identified based off of access. Who can access certain comforts, who can access certain resources, who can access certain foods and certain drinks. In the course of the day of Ramadan, as the sun begins to set, the wealthy and the poor are both experiencing the same thirst. The understanding from what hunger can teach us within that it starts to level out these hierarchies and gives us an insight as to where there is a commonality at a communal level that can then, by extension, through reflection on why is it that I get irritable and frustrated? Why is it that I start to lash out at people? Why is it that I am in a place where my sense of connection through this shared experience allows for me to feel certain things that people who are different from me also feel? It's only going to be transformational if you think about it, man. You allow for the experience of the fast to actually be something that teaches you, and you don't go through it in a way that you are other than what makes you innately human. Ulaika kal an'am, the Quran says that they live in this world like they are cattle. You are not a cow. If God wanted you to be a cow, he would have made you a cow. He did not make you a cow. He gave you the ability to think thoughts. The success is not simply just to think a thought, it's to be able to reclaim capacity to choose what you think about and how you think about the things that you think about. What is hunger going to teach you this Ramadan? And how are you going to then act upon what it is that you know? Knowledge in and of itself is meant to create responsibility. And everything is going to go back to these places of accountability that I could do whatever I want to in this worldly existence, man. I'm just going to have to explain to God why I did it this way. If you get used to the physicality of it, it doesn't necessarily mean that you suspend contemplation and reflection. Transformation starts with Nia. Bucket number 2 for those who are able to fast. See hunger as a pedagogy. Allow for it to be something that in the course of the day, you sit down for 3 or 4 minutes and you tell yourself, what is the physical aspect of this practice teaching me about myself and teaching me how it is that I relate to those who are around me? A third element that exists within this of transformation that we have access to, you use a part of the nights to just speak to the divine. For whatever reason that Allah ordained it, that when the nights reach their darkest of shades, it creates, consequently, the utmost potential for illumination of your inside. But you don't want collective identities to be what it is that quite often is experienced just again from the outward transactional relationship to tradition. A lot of masjids are going to be filled with people across the room, row upon row upon row. May Allah accept from all of us. It is not a judgmental understanding, but just to think about it objectively. If there are that many people who are engaged in the practice that is meant to soften the hearts and interact with the inner self, who are looking into the last thirds of the night, making dua at times in the rest of the year that they might be asleep, then how are we still so scared to go out and live our faith with a sense of honor and dignity? How are we in a place where when we don't know how to express emotion from the frustration of an anti-Black world that seeks to treat us in certain ways as minority, we believe that the better choice is to lash out at our children and our family members and others? Use the nights in the ways that they were intended. But just don't be a body standing next to a bunch of bodies in prayer and you're just going through the motions of hearing things recited. You want to engage in a conversation with the divine that allows for you to understand that things that might be real don't have to be excuses. You can say, I don't speak Arabic. It still doesn't mean that you can't understand the meaning of the text that you're reading. All you're saying to yourself when you say that is a justification that you didn't pick up a book of a translation that could take you 10 minutes to understand what you recited, either after it was recited or before you went into it, or even better, sandwiching the experience with both. But I can start and stop with an excuse that gives me a big pile of nothing at the end of the day. And I go into a place where my presence is something that I didn't seek to make more concrete and anchored because I took something that justified passivity, but all it was doing was the prevention of transformation. Use the nights in the ways that they were intended to be used. It doesn't have to be for 7, 8 hours in a row, nor does it have to be just only in one night out of 30, but 5, 10 minutes of the night. Awaken people in your house, young and old. Make dua together. Pray 2 extra rakahs, 4 extra rakahs. If you only know Surah Ikhlas, just recite Surah Ikhlas. You only know Surah Fatiha. Understand within the context of how fiqh applies to each of us. Just do what you could do, man. But the nights can create transformation. The yield to it doesn't have to be that I don't feel something. It's still doing heart work at the end of the day, allowing for there to be an inward mode of transformation. But that has to be set in an intention that says, I want this Ramadan to change me. Can we have everybody move up? If you just come in really close, we can fill in space for people who are going to be joining us. A fourth aspect of transformation. So, Nia, hunger as a pedagogy, and the utilization of the nights in Qiyam. The Prophet ﷺ was described to be the most generous of beings. And in Ramadan, he was even more generous than he was in other times of the year. His generosity in Ramadan was likened to being more generous than even the ways winds would blow against people. May Allah make us like our Prophet ﷺ. A generosity that's directly linked to giving of charity in the most literal of senses, sadaqah and zakah, financial contributions. But a generosity that also understands that we're not just trying to fulfill an act. It's about time that each one of us knows about the people in our day-to-day lives that are in a place of need. You have friends that you spend time with who might not be able to express just how alone they feel after Ramadan, and there's not gatherings that they can go to. You have people in your lives who have not had jobs, not just for weeks or months, but years, struggling to pay bills. There's people in your circles who have lost entire generations of their family to global conflict. Allah grant them ease and raise them amongst the shuhada. The generosity of the Prophet ﷺ is so unique, but he's also attuned to the realities of the people that he engages with day to day. A transactional action of charity is just me writing something and giving it with no presence. A transformational act of charity and generosity requires me to put in a little bit more effort and remember who my teacher is. You are not supposed to submit to systems of whiteness that seek to erase identity of populations. You're supposed to be people who know people that come from all backgrounds. Lita'arafu. And that intimate knowing enables there to be a transformational nature of your inner self. So allow for that ability of charity to be something that is good for your heart more than thinking about how it is that it's just engaged as a mindless fulfillment of an obligation. Spend some time this Ramadan getting up and then staying awake and going and volunteering and doing something. We have programs that you can join where you can go into hospitals in Ramadan and provide iftar and suhoor meals to families who are there with their children in pediatric units, still observing Ramadan here in hospitals across New York City. What do you think iftar is like for a mother or father who sees their baby hooked up to a machine, not knowing whether or not they're going to survive after the next few months? It's difficulty losing a loved one, but you can imagine the loss of being a parent who outlives their child. And intention becomes the base of all of it. Why would you not do it if you could? Because nobody else does it? Because the gatherings that we convene on are purely rooted in moments of indulgence? The idea is not to spend the day in fast and then the night in a place of opulence, but to be able to allow for the lesson of it to not be lost, because as soon as the sun set, I indulged in things that seek to satisfy my more bestial understanding of this world rather than my celestial self. Charity can be transformative. And if you've experienced Ramadan exactly the same, just sit down and say, what is it that's changing, or can I change that would allow for me to do this differently? A fifth bucket that can enable a transformational Ramadan is the gift of tawbah that we've been given, the ability to come back to Allah. The idea that any one of us will make a mistake, and I start to understand what are the habits that shackle me, what are the things that are holding me back, but intrinsic to the embrace of tauba, repentance, not in a way that parrots other traditions, that makes us feel as if we are nothing other than the worst of our actions. And this is a tactic of shaitan to create isolation, to have us believe that somehow something we did could be greater than Allah's rahmah. But what tauba is built upon is uniquely the idea of responsibility. That I actually have the ability to do something that could hurt someone else or hurt me. Just because I could get away with it doesn't mean I got away with it. And the thing I want to be more mindful of is the way I treated that girl who couldn't do anything to me because of the way I treated her. She's going to still stand on the day of judgment. May Allah grant us ease. That child that I put adult emotions into their heart that no child should ever have to have. They potentially will also stand on the day of judgment. That person that I denied being able to marry my child, who I wouldn't invite into my home, not have a gathering with their presence because they came from a different race, ethnicity, culture, class. I don't know whose sunnah you're following, man. But every single person that we interact with, in Allah katab al-ihsan ala kulli shay. Allah has prescribed ihsan on everything. They can all come and they can all stand on the day of judgment. May Allah grant us ease on that day. Just because you think you got away with it doesn't mean you got away with it. And where tawbah can be transformational is that what's a unique quality of this religion is accountability, is responsibility. It gives an understanding that perfection was never the pursuit. But to be able to understand that my choices and my decisions can actually impact others. And I got to either wake up in this world or I'm going to have to deal with it in the next. The opportunity to turn back in Ramadan and allow for it to be transformational. So I don't start pushing back against people who have less than I do in terms of strength and ability and power and privilege, or I deny rights any longer. But our Prophet's mode of existence was to act justly with others and not demand justice for himself. You have hurt people in your lives. You know it's true. And you know that you haven't gone to all of them, younger, older, same age, and acknowledged it for yourself, let alone to anybody else. You have a prophet who told the children in his life that he loved them. Show me a hadith where the prophet of God yelled at any of his kids. Tawbah is a gift. The ability to, when you fall into the hole, get out of the hole. And what it tells you is that you are making a firm statement that I know I'm better than this nonsense, man. I'm better than this gossip. I'm better than this backbiting. I'm better than this racism. When you're reading Quran and you're engaged in that night prayer and it comes to verses that speak about justice, it's not metaphorical. When it talks about arrogance, it's not speaking about somebody else. The idea is to deliberate and to do tadabbur, to be able to reflect and say, what is this telling me about me? So that I am no longer today afraid to meet who I can become tomorrow. And within tawbah is this inherent characteristic that would enable us to stop being people who live in adult bodies, but we have a baby nafs that hasn't been weaned off of the dunya. Responsibility, accountability, transformational qualities. It's important to understand at the other end of it, you don't have to blame yourself for the actions of others who don't take responsibility for the things they've done to you. And when you're sitting and you're deliberating in dissonance, trying to figure out how somebody who claimed to be a sister or brother or somebody who's a caregiver could treat you that way, sometimes you got to stop giving second chances to people who never deserved a first chance to begin with. And I'm sorry for people who have wronged you, who have not then sought forgiveness from you. But forgiveness in large part is for the forgiver. Let go of the control that they have over you. And if you are sitting in this Jumu'ah, there's not any two of us who talk to each other. There's not two sinners talking to each other, man. Embrace tawbah in this month of Ramadan as a transformational characteristic. A sixth bucket that would render transformation is the mechanism through which we start to control our tongues and our speech. In hadith after hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, he tells us that whoever does not give up deceitful talk, lying, he does not give up obscene language, there's no benefits to their fasting. All they will get is hunger. The consumption is not just about the lessening of food and drink, but the increase in what it is that are expressions that have no ambiguity to their goodness and the diminishing of things that just don't make any sense. The amplification of expression because of digital media that we have access to allows for our words to now be exponentially engaged. That means that when you say something you shouldn't, in seconds, it can now go to places that you still have responsibility for every person who engages your words that you put into this world. من كان يؤمن بالله وباليوم الآخر فليقل خيرا أو ليصمت. Whosoever habitually believes in Allah on the last day, let them utter good or be silent. Just say nice things to people. It's not really that hard. Take a breath before it is that you speak what it is that you're going to put into manifest expression, and really think consequently about what it is that's going to happen as a result of the words that you put in. The people that we should be speaking to in elevated voices, we become meek in front of. And the people that we should be expressing kindness and gentleness to, we suddenly turn it into the opposite. Try in this Ramadan to not speak poorly behind their back, people who are not there. Just try. It's crazy how many people's conversations are just rooted in talking about people who are not there in a poor way, saying things that they wouldn't want to have said. It does not mean if there is benefit to it. Sit down and speak to people about the things that are done to you that are harsh. This is not about an abuser telling the one that they abuse that if you were to talk about what I did to you, there's a revelation of my sins, and then you are in the wrong. Don't manipulate our tradition. This is not the time to be sitting down and just speaking for the sake of speaking. Express less if you don't know if what you're expressing is going to hurt your heart more than anybody else. And if you can learn how to control the tongue, it's going to give you an ability to control everything else. Because the talk that hurts us the most is not only what it is we convey to others, but a self-talk that brings us to a place that our perspective of self becomes so skewed. To balance out the impact of a negative, it requires 5 positives to be uttered. And companion after companion after companion is told by the Prophet ﷺ that the preservation of the tongue becomes an integral part to the betterment of one's inside. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to get exhausted. You're going to get frustrated. You might take it out on the people closest to you. All you got to do is go back to the bucket before. That's why Tawbah is there. It doesn't matter if they're younger than you. It doesn't matter if they're older than you. It doesn't matter what their relationship is. Wrong sometimes is wrong. You just go back and you give them the words that will help in their process of healing. I shouldn't have spoken to you that way. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said those things about you. I'm sorry. The ability to harness and protect in an age where digital media gives that much more amplification. Allow for yourself to make it a transformational Ramadan by understanding that there's an intrinsic link between what we say and the state of our inner selves. And a last bucket that enables potentially a transformational experience. Think about right now what it is that you're going to do, that you're going to continue after the month is over. What are you going to keep doing that you know you will start to do in Ramadan and you're not going to stop it once Eid comes? For yourself, doesn't have to be announced to the world. You want to create an accountability buddy? Take somebody with you that you trust and you could do it together. But if you don't express it and you just go through the month as a body on default settings, one of the signs of an accepted Ramadan is that you are different after, not the same. And at this juncture in the majority of our lives, any one of us can sit and actually spend a few minutes in reflection that for our own betterment, not for anybody else's, what am I going to keep doing once that month is done? And if Allah blesses me to reach the end of it. So what are you going to do? The continuity, perhaps, of one fast a week, the ongoing engagement of acts of charity and volunteerism, a continued convening of people in a city that is transient and lonely, so they keep eating meals together that have barakah, with Allah's name mentioned over it, with friends and family, and not be in a place where it's just a distant memory with unhealthy nostalgia attached to it, because it only comes once a year. What are you going to keep doing once Eid is done? Name it for yourself. Allow for yourself to then wrestle with the ego to allow for it to be embedded in your routine and your practice. Transactional religion is not something that our deen is devoid of, but it's not the only part to it. The transformational aspects that can blend with it are uniquely gifted to us with ease in Ramadan. Let yourself individually start to think we are days away from it. May Allah bless us to reach it. What do you need to do in order for it to be transformative and allow for you to leave it in a state that was better than which you entered into it? أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروا إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. إن الحمد لله إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله تعالى فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا مولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله. Inshallah ta'ala, in the coming week, we are going to commence our Ramadan programming here at this space. Following the opinion of the Fiqh Council of North America, we're going to begin with the Tarawih prayers on Tuesday evening. And in our center, we're going to stay consistent with the time of Isha uh, at around 8:30 p.m. We'll pray, and then we'll have the Salatul Tarawih, 20 rak'ahs, wrapping up probably at around 10:30, inshallah. So it's consistent throughout the month. We'll have iftar here every night, and we'll need your help to be able to ensure that we can provide the food to all those who are coming by helping us to sponsor and pay for these dinners. We have a team of about 300 volunteers, mashallah, who are helping us to execute, make special dua for them, that Allah gives them conviction, sincerity, and strength, and makes us from amongst those who appreciate those who are in service of our community. At the end of the month, we are intending to, as in years past, have Eid prayers in Washington Square Park on the 20th of March, inshallah. And in between, we'll host qiyams, we'll have halakas, we'll have charity campaigns. It's going to be the first Ramadan we do entirely in this space. It would be a joy to see any one of you be a part of it in whatever way that you can. But make dua that Allah is pleased with it and grants us tawfiq in it and enables us to utilize this Ramadan as a mechanism to really cultivate what the soul of this community is going to be. We'll need as much help as possible to ensure that we're able to fulfill the rights of those who are coming. So wherever it is that you can help us would be appreciated. In anticipation of our growing Jumu'ah here and Jumu'ahs going into Ramadan, from next week, we are going to be adding a second Jumu'ah prayer. If you are not on our mailing list, make sure that you scan the QR code to get on it because we're going to make announcements about timings that way. This prayer will be likely shifted slightly, and we'll add on another one shortly after. And then a couple of weeks into Ramadan, by the last third of it with daylight savings time, we're going to have to shift as well because it'll be an hour later than the timings it is right now. So be sure that you scan that and sign up for it so that you're getting direct information. We really need every one of us to utilize this Ramadan bigger than ourselves. In the last month and a half, Allah has blessed me to be in different parts of the world with so many people who are part of our Ummah globally. We're waiting for us in this part of the world to use what we have access to be a means through which they have the support that they're in need of. None of them are complaining. None of them are having crises of faith. But they're in a space where the reality is such that if we are not living bigger than ourselves, the impact consequently is that the means through which they get support, it becomes limited. So don't think about what's going to be the easiest. Don't think simply about the way that it was done by generations that came before you. Think about why Allah put you in the world at this time right now and how your Ramadan is for you, but it's also for the rest of us. And how it is that you're going to dig deep and get it done, man. Not just grocery lists and not just schedule refinements, but moral refinement, inner refinement. Inshallah ta'ala, Allah Azza wa Jal will make this a transformational Ramadan for all of us. and make it something that He accepts from each of us as well. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد في الأولين وفي الآخرين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين. We begin this supplication in your name, Ya Allah, and beseech you to send your choicest salutations upon your most beloved, sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. We ask that you shower your infinite mercy upon this gathering, granting each and every one who is present herein and our loved ones only the best in this world and the best in the next. We ask, Ya Allah, that if all of us are meant to be together only at this time, at this place, whether we are young or old, male or female, regardless of our race, our ethnicity, our social class, our country of origin, our cultural heritage, whether we are Muslim or come from a different walk of life, Ya Rabbi, if our individual hearts are meant to be in the presence of all other hearts that are gathered here only at this time, at this place, then gather us all together again in the best of places in the world beyond this one. We come before you, Ya Allah, as we are, not as we pretend to be, not as we curate ourselves to be seen by others, but as we truly are, tired, hopeful, flawed, and longing. Ya Rabbi, you gifted us Ramadan not as a burden, but as an opening to remember who we are and an opening to remember whose we are. Let this month not pass over us lightly, Ya Allah. Don't let our fast just be hunger. Don't let our thirst just be dryness in our throats. Let our hunger teach us empathy. Let our thirst soften the hardness in our hearts. Let every empty moment make space for you. Ya Allah, discipline our egos. When no one is watching and we choose not to eat, let that choice remind us that we are capable of choosing you in all things. When we are irritated, exhausted, stretched thin, let us respond with patience that surprises even ourselves. Make this coming Ramadan transformational for us. Transform our anger into mercy. Transform our greed into generosity. Transform our heedlessness into presence. Transform our guilt into sincere tawbah. Ya Allah, forgive us in ways that change us. Not just forgiveness that wipes the slate clean, but forgiveness that makes us never want to return to what distanced us from you. Give us the courage to name our shortcomings. Give us the humility to seek reconciliation. Give us the strength to break habits that break us. Ya Rahman, let the Quran be more than sound on our tongues. Let it be light in our chests. When we stand in prayer, tired but trying, let us feel that we are standing before you, known completely and loved still. Make us people of ethical courage. In a world that normalizes excess, make us people of restraint. In a world that rewards cruelty, make us people of gentleness. In a world that monetizes outrage, make us people of principled silence. Let our fasting train us to resist every appetite that compromises our integrity. Ya Rabbi, expand our generosity beyond transactions. Help us give not only our wealth, but our time, not only our time, but our attention, and not only our attention, but our hearts. Let us see the lonely. Let us uplift the struggling. Let us stand in solidarity with those whose hunger is not voluntary. And in the last nights, Ya Allah, when the world sleeps and we stand before you, let us stand honestly. Let our dua be vulnerable. Let our tears be sincere. If there is a Laylatul Qadr written for us, write us amongst those who are forgiven. Write us amongst those who are freed. Write us amongst those who leave the month different than when they entered it. And when the Eid comes upon us, Ya Allah, let it not be the end of our striving. Let it be the beginning of a new consistency. Carry forward in us the discipline, the mercy, the mindfulness that only Ramadan can offer us. Ya Allah, remake us through it. Make us more conscious of you, more accountable to one another, more resistant to the idols of ego and excess, more rooted in compassion and justice. Let this Ramadan not be simply a memory for us, but let it be a turning point. Protect us always from hearts that are not humble, tongues that are not wise, and eyes that have forgotten how to cry. Forgive us for our shortcomings and guide and bless us all. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وآله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وأقيموا الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر.